years down the road?
I think in a perfect world, you'd like to draft both. A guy that showed some performance throughout the season, but also may be on a trajectory where he's showing some potential to be good for your organization, especially as you alluded to when you're in the situation that we are. At the same time, where we're picking, I think you just have to do right by the organization and make the best selection you can going forward for that player to help this organization win games. It's a somewhat of a crapshoot in terms of trying to project what's going to happen through the draft, because you don't know what every team is actually going to do. I'd like to believe that, assuming we keep this pick, that we'll have an opportunity to get a player that can help this organization. Now, once we complete our list, we may not be there. I mean, there may be a situation where there's not a player that we like or believe can help the organization, but looking at it anecdotally at this point, I'd like to think that there'll be a player that can help us there. John, you got some insight in that regard?
Yeah, I think there are certainly guys that would be able to step in and play. You take a guy like Klay Thompson, he's got an NBA skill. He's further along than some of the other guys in the draft, and so yeah, I think there's guys that will be available that can step in and play minutes and help win.
Well, I think you look at that in two ways. I think one of the challenges about ranking this draft is there's not as much clarity in terms of who's going to pick when. That, I think, is getting lost with the level of talent, which, from my perspective, I think this is a deep draft, and you do have players that are going to be able to impact rosters around the league. So in terms of predicting who, where, not a whole lot of clarity, but I think the player at 15 could be as good, if not better, than the player at 10, et cetera. And so from all of our research, or my research, it looks like this draft is going to be fairly deep. And hopefully you're one of the teams that gets the right guy that aligns with your organization.
One name that's moving up is Amon Shumpert. Just kind of tell us what your evaluations are of him.
I never have understood the moving up and down because it's a process that hasn't happened. As it relates to Amon, he's one of 40-plus guys that we've had in. In terms of his projection of where he might get drafted, who knows?
Evaluate him as a player, though.
Evaluate him as a player, big, strong guard. He was in a situation where the team's performance wasn't really great over the last few years at Georgia Tech. I think he can defend really well. Probably not the greatest shooting percentages from three and such, but some of that might have been a function of not the best shooting selection, which probably could have been better at times. John, you have anything to add in that regard as far as?
I just think that he's a combo guard. He played both the one and the two. Did that at Georgia Tech. As far as an athlete, he's at the top of the list athletically in the draft. So yeah, he's at the top.
There are reports out there that you guys are interested in trading Gortat to Minnesota for the second pick. Is that just unfounded speculation, or you just put an end to those if that's not true?
I would say it's speculation. It's obviously founded speculation, but that's part of the business. It's you get in this business and everybody's going to get traded, and there was Steve at one point and Gortat, I guess now. It's hard to keep up with, so we're going to build the best team that we can. We love Marcin Gortat. And hope that he's a part of our core going forward for a long time. But in regards to trading, you better check. Maybe another name out there already.
Well, are you having any talks with any clubs about moving up actively?
We have talks with every club, always, about everything. So that's just part of the business. I'm sure Lon is having several calls a day. I'll have calls as well. It's part of the deal. So
stood out for you during this process? Who did you learn the most about during the workout process?
It's been a good process to really have a chance for all of our group to get to know the guys. One of the things that we did when we brought the guys in for visits was spend a lot of time with them individually. Lance would take Jimmer to lunch and spend that time with him. I would take him to dinner, Lon would take him to breakfast, and the other scouts. So just the process of really getting to know the guys as individuals, as people. The basketball piece, we've studied them all year. We've been out there watching the games all season and then the workout. But just getting to know them as people was the really benefit of bringing them in and visiting with them. So,
Did anyone specifically surprise you? Got something?
I would say Kenneth Fareed was a guy because he's such a kind of an outlier, an anomaly. You know, he played at Morehead State, which is kind of an under the radar. I watched him in a lot of different situations this year where he was playing against teams in his conference that the biggest guy was 6'6", but I also saw him at Florida against their guys. I saw him against Ohio State with Sullinger, and you know that rebounding translates. And so he comes from a unique background situation, but it's the first guy I've seen in a long time that rebounds the ball similar to the Rodman. So I would say him.
You think he can hold his own pretty much playing defense against Forrest at his size?
I think he's got a chance. He's got to get bigger and stronger. You know, when you first meet him and you're, you know, around him, he's a very lean guy, and that's going to be a challenge. There's no question. But I was talking with Mark West about that yesterday upstairs, and talked with him about that. And defenses are going to scheme against an opponent. And how many teams go-to guys are their power forwards, and so I think he has a chance to be successful.
What you've seen, does he have pretty high defensive awareness?
He does, and just the pursuit of the basketball is. I mean, we've had again a lot of power forwards in here, and he's at the top in that area.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And Thursday, we'll do it in here, and then Friday if we have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hang on. 1 second, I got it.
Okay.
But then Friday, we hope we have something in the afternoon for your planning purposes.
Should I go with that?
You can just come right here, because
I would say Kenneth Fareed was a guy because he's such a kind of an outlier, an anomaly. You know, he played at Morehead State, which is kind of an under the radar. I watched him in a lot of different situations this year where he was playing against teams in his conference that the biggest guy was 6'6", but I also saw him at Florida against their guys. I saw him against Ohio State with Sullinger, and you know that rebounding translates. And so he comes from a unique background situation, but it's the first guy I've seen in a long time that rebounds the ball similar to the Rodman. So I would say him.